My topic for today is bindings, and that can be actually a really big topic. So I'm going to focus in on cross-country ski bindings, and I'm going to be talking specifically about the bindings with the bars on them. So please know that there are also 3-pin bindings, which is the old system of bindings. And luckily, if you are going to buy 3-pin bindings and 3-pin boots, they'll be compatible because there's really only that 3-pin technology. Make sure you test it out, but you should be good. Now, if you're going to be buying the binding with this bar, it's really important to know what there is even out there, because basically you have two broad categories of technology called SNS and NNN. So SNS is Solomon Nordic System, and then NNN is New Nordic Norm. And the important thing to know is that these two types of bindings are not compatible. If you try to jam your SNS boots into your NNN bindings, likely you will break your bindings. So don't do it and be aware. This is really important when you're buying skis online and you found your boots or you found your skis and you have to go and find the compatible bindings to fit with them. Also, please know that if you have boots and bindings that are not compatible, it's not that expensive to just go out and buy yourself new bindings. This is the binding. This is the plate. This is the bar up here. Like this whole thing is the binding. They can just take that off the ski. There's basically a bunch of little, you could even do it. There's like screws that you take off, and you will just switch your binding, like maximum around $100. So it's like an option if you've already like bought the wrong stuff and that's where you're at. But if you haven't and you're trying to buy the things that match, I'm going to explain to you what those two different things are and how they work. So to start, SNS is the system that Salomon developed, which is not compatible with most other skis or boots, with most other bindings. So basically, you can think of it as like Salomon, and then all other things are NNN for the most part. Where it gets complicated is that Salomon saw a decline in their sales of SNS technology. So they also have developed ProLink, which is their new system, and that is compatible with NNN. So basically, I guess what you want to think of is like maybe the standard is NNN, and even Salomon makes NNN these days, which is a new development. And then there's a chance that you've got this SNS if you're buying secondhand, especially. And it's actually quite common because Salomon is a really popular brand and there are a lot of boots out there that are Salomon. So that is basically the thing you have to look out for. Salomon also has the Salomon, like their regular Salomon SNS binding. And then there have a few variations depending on if there's, I'll show you that here, the Pilot system, which has 2 bars. So you really want your Pilot, if you have Pilot Salomon boots, you want them to match with your Pilot bindings, which will just have a space for the second bar on the binding. The second bar doesn't clip in, but it will sit in the groove of the binding and make you more efficient. So in general, it's possible to stick a Pilot binding into the hole of a SNS not Pilot, like an SNS profile binding. In other words, this bar is the same for the 2 SNS. It's just the question of do you have the second bar? However, if you have the second bar and the bindings are not designed for the second bar, it's not going to sit smoothly on the binding. Because you want, basically there's 2 components of what you want to have with your binding. So here we go. You want the bar to sit into a little hole. It's basically like a jigsaw puzzle where you've got like, you want the bar going into the hole and then you're going to clip it closed and it'll stay in place and be able to rotate. So I'm going to lift the binding here. The hole opens. I should be able to put the boot into the hole and then clip back down. Okay, that's good. Now the second thing you want for your binding is that the boot is actually able to sit all the way down once your weight's on it. See there how the boot and the binding are like completely flush the whole way along? This is important because it's going to be allowing you to have the proper stride that you want when you're skiing. If, for example, you try to fit an SNS Pilot as a 2-bar into a regular SNS, it's possible you'll fit on the top, but then your boot is going to be like sticking up because the bar is not, there's no groove for the bar to hit into. So the bar is like holding you off in the air. Possible to ski like this, but not desired. Do not, like, if for some reason you got to stick your feet in there to get the last kilometer home because your skis broke and that's the only skis, like, you could do it. But you don't want to buy these two incompatible systems. The other thing just to keep in mind, like, you want this, like I said, you want this flush alignment with the boot and the ski. If there's snow in the groove of the boot, so if snow catches in here, especially on a warm, sticky day, snowball kind of making day, then it's going to be harder to get it in, and you're going to have to, before you get in, lift your foot in the air, tap with your pole on the bottom of the ski, tap hard enough, then, but without putting that foot back in the snow, stick it on the binding, and you should be good to go. If it's really bad, you might have to get a friend to like come and scrape it with their bottom of their pole, because there's like at the bottom of the pole there's a metal little tip that you can use to really scrape the snow out. But in general, tapping with your pole and just tapping the snow out should get you what you want. Okay, so now we've basically covered the idea of this SNS Pilot with 2 bars versus SNS with 1 bar, which are not compatible, but you could actually put the ski into the two things. Now comes the important thing, which is NNN, which is this whole nother system that the bar, and I don't think you'll be able to tell. You can marginally see the difference here. There is a slightly different size in the bar. So if you look at it, the NNN looks a little bit wider. That's one thing. These two types of bindings are not compatible with each other. You try to stick one in to the wrong one and it will not stick. This has happened to me before. I have a friend who has broken a pair of bindings because she was just given the skis, given the boots, given the everything, and didn't realize that actually they weren't compatible, kept trying, kept thinking, oh, why am I so stupid? I can't get these boots on. I can't do it. They were not compatible. It was never going to work. Like, she didn't know it was never going to work. So like, basically, if you take away this idea that like the binding should fit, like if there's no snow in the boot and if there's no snow in the binding, which can also happen, and you've checked it and there's nothing blocking, like they should fit. It should not be a huge struggle. That being said, the first time you ever put your boots on, it is hard. So I don't be surprised if it's a challenge. The best thing to do is if you're not sure, you have 2 options. One, read on the boot, because the boots will all be saying what they are. So here, this one says Pilot on it. Here, it's SNS Pilot. Here, this one says ProLink on it. And if you look at the bindings, here, this one here says Profile on it. This one here also says ProLink. So if you just read what is on them, already you're going to have the information you need. ProLink goes with ProLink. Profile goes with Profile. Like, it's not rocket science here. Just what's hard is to know that this concept of bindings matching even exists, right? Because what crazy person was like, okay, let's just make them slightly similar but not compatible? Great, thanks guys. Another trick, if you want to know if things work together, is to just like now take your boot, take your binding, and do it like just put it in and clip it down without having your foot involved. Just like see if it fits. Just watch that it fits, because with your hand and your ski, you should be able to get it in. Now, I've been demonstrating on this system, which is this bar that I lift, okay? So when I lift it up, voila, the ski comes out. Be aware that the second system, which is this one here, which is very distinctive looking, there's nothing to lift. It's harder for beginners to get into because what you have to do is align this boot in the right position. Now, lift it a little bit in the air, and with your weight, press down and it should go in. It should like click in. If you're trying to do it too flat or too forward back or too forwards, it won't work. So if you have that type of system, so you don't have anything to lift, but you have to actually just like clip it in, give yourself some time, be patient. It's hard to learn at the beginning. Once you learn it, it's easy because you don't have to bend down and lift anything up. And when you're done at the end of the day, you don't have to bend down to lift it up to get out. You just press down here. And when you press hard enough, usually it's like with your pole. So you use the little sticky part of your pole, you press down, and you should be able to get out. And so for that reason, I can, without even putting force here, I can press down and force it open. And then, good, now I'm in. So you can do that, you can test that on your own before you even start skiing. Okay. Another way to, so we talked about like reading what's on the bottom of the boot and just reading the words and making sure the words match up. We talked about like doing it before you're on snow, just being at home and trying to put it in. Another clue that you can use is like Salomon is the only brand that's going to be making SNS. So if it's Salomon, we have to start thinking, is this going to be a SNS system? You could still have Fischer skis with Salomon bindings, and because the person had Salomon boots, so they put Salomon bindings on their Fischer skis. So like it's not like just because you see non-Salomon doesn't mean that there won't be Salomon bindings sneaking around. If it's not Salomon bindings and if the boots aren't Salomon, they're not going to be SNS boots. Like I promise you, 100% sure, they're not going to be. If you decide you really love the Salomon boot because it fits you really well, but you already have an NNN binding, well, the good news is that Salomon has now made the ProLink system, and the ProLink system is completely compatible. So you can go out and buy yourself Salomon boots that will fit with NNN bindings. My biggest advice would be, if you're choosing, like you're like, okay, should I take SNS or NNN? The future is NNN. SNS is going to be like, it's not being made anymore. It's going to be gone. So it's a great way to get like a really good pair of skis secondhand with SNS system. Go for it 100%. I like highly recommend it. But if you got the choice because you're buying new or whatever, go with NNN. It'll be more compatible with more people's skis in the future as people continue to buy more NNN skis. The only other thing to consider is like if all your friends have SNS and you want to be able to try all their nice skis out, which is kind of fun sometimes. Be like, hey, let's switch skis for a little bit. I want to feel your skis. Then maybe you will want to get SNS. But yeah, basically that basically means though, because Salomon has their SNS and now they have ProLink, which is basically NNN, that you are going to be a little bit confused perhaps. But like I said, all of the boots say it on them what they are, and all of the bindings say on them what they are. So really, like, you have all the tools to know. It's just hard sometimes to remember all these acronyms, hard sometimes to remember what it even means. So don't worry if you forget everything I said and you just retain the idea that the word of the binding and the word of the boot need to match. There needs to be some kind of compatibility there. And the rest you can just look up and see what it says online. Okay, I'm going to finish quickly with this concept of, we were just looking at like standard bindings that work for classic skiing and skate skiing. And now I want to talk to you about backcountry skiing. So backcountry skiing, you can have the 3-pin system, which I mentioned at the beginning, which is like the oldest type of bindings and that we don't really see that much in classic skiing really these days. You can also have a spring binding, which is like where you like put the, I don't have any, so I can't really show you, but you put the binding into, you put the boot into, it's like a little like duck platypus beak, it, like you slip it in, kind of like the 3-pin, but there's no pins, and then the binding will like clamp down on the ski. And then, but really what I want to focus on the most for today for this last section is the backcountry binding with the bar. So you have a bigger bar. Here, I'll give you a comparison. So you can see there's a bigger bar. You can see that the whole boot is like bigger, stiffer, you know, more ankle, more tough. Backcountry means potentially more ice, potentially steeper conditions, potentially deeper snow, and especially trees, which force sharper turns, more control. So that's where all this stiffness and bigness and strength is coming from, to give you more control when you're skiing. You can see the backcountry binding here. I have a super old backcountry ski with this old NNN backcountry binding. There also was an SNS backcountry binding, but it's not made anymore, and you probably won't really find that unless you're buying secondhand, in which case always be careful. SNS versus NNN, the danger zone. So yeah, this binding lifts up, and then that makes, if you can probably see, that opens up that hole there. When it's open, you can slip it in, then you will push it back down, and you should be in space, clipped in. Warning, I have trouble with my old backcountry bindings. Sometimes they get like, they're bigger, so like there's more space for ice to actually build up in the binding and catch in there. So if you've taken them off and you've gotten snowy and then you're trying to get back into them, you might have to look inside and see, like, is there actually any ice in there? Because that can be a point of issue. I know somebody whose backcountry binding boots, like her boots were in the binding, they got stuck, and she couldn't get them off until she took them inside and warmed them up. So she had to like go into the cabin with her ski on, like take her ski off, take her boot off with her ski, and carry the boot and the binding together back inside to let it warm up. So if you're ever in trouble, keep in mind that it's usually like ice and snow that's giving you the issue, which will be resolved by warmth because it will melt and the issue will go away. Basically I have these old backcountry skis that like have metal edges that haven't been waxed in forever and probably haven't been sharpened in forever and need to be sharpened. They're like, you know, pretty heavy, pretty old-fashioned, pretty like old technology, but I got them for free because they were just flying around the Nordic Ski Team gear room and no one wanted them. And so what I did was I invested in these Alpina Alaska backcountry ski boots. And this is something I can suggest in general. If you're not sure where to put your money, I would say go for the really nice boots that are comfortable, that feel good. That's going to make a huge difference in your comfort. And like the quality of the ski is really like, you will not be noticing a difference on your first year of learning to ski. That like the ski is nice because you've got so much other stuff to learn before you get there. So the boot comfort is way more important as a beginner than the ski quality. And the ski quality can be bought. Like one day I'm going to buy myself some nice touring skis, but I haven't gotten there yet, so I haven't bought them yet. But the combination of like new boots with old skis, I think that's great. I love it. I highly recommend. So I hope that helped like demystify all this binding craziness. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about the actual skis and like, what is this skin that you see on the bottom of the ski? And what does it mean to have a skate ski versus a classic ski? And why are there metal edges on some skis? So hopefully that'll help. Hopefully you're curious to go to learn about the next video as soon as it comes out. All right. Have a good day, guys. Get outside. Enjoy the snow.